Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Crendor, and welcome back to Crendor Rants about various things in World of Warcraft. Today, we're going to be ranting about classic WoW leveling versus BFA leveling, because that's been a really big topic I've seen pretty much everywhere. So I really wanted to discuss that with everybody and see if we can get some logical conclusions going instead of just everyone yelling at each other. So another thing, I actually got a machinima idea I'm starting to work on right now, so that's going to be fun. It's going to tie into pretty much what I've already been talking about in all these videos, but I think it'll be done in a more funny way. So throwing that out there, but that's besides the point. First thing, I read a comment on a YouTube video. I have it right here. It might have been on Nixium's video. It was on one of those. Because Nixium did a video where he compared leveling in BFA and leveling in Classic WoW, and he kind of did like a compare and contrast and showed what's good, what's bad, all that type of stuff. So somebody said, we all know that BFA questing feels like something you have to do in order to get to the real game. So I don't really think it's fair to compare BFA questing with Classic questing, since the questing in Classic was a big part of the game. Which is true, right? It's true. So in modern WoW, you only have to go 10 levels, 110 to 120 or whatever expansion level range it was. While in vanilla WoW, it was a brand new game, right? You had to go 1 to 60, so even just 1 to 10, then 10 to 20, and 20 to 30, blah, 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 so on. And it took a lot longer, and you spent a lot more time leveling because it was just slower. And it does feel that in the current games, they put less emphasis on the leveling. I think they do want people to kind of just hurry up and get to the max level so they can just throw stuff at you to the point where they offer level boosting. Woo! Level boosting. And I think level boosting might be one of the biggest things standing in the way of them fixing the leveling process, if you will. Here's the thing that I was thinking about. How do you, it's kind of like the thing I talked about in the last video. How do you introduce classic WoW mechanics of like old school RPG and MMO stuff into modern WoW without making everybody angry and still keeping a lot of the things that are convenient in modern WoW, right? And I think you can do it, but you have to kind of do it gradually, or you gotta test it and see what works, what doesn't work. So I think some of the things I would want from like a new expansion, if after BFA, if like whatever the next one is, I'd want more feelings of being in danger. That's one of the biggest things from Classic WoW that I've enjoyed, is having to fight like 1 to 2 mobs at a time. 2 is cutting it. When you hit 3, you're probably gonna die. The fact that you can just pull like 5, 6 mobs in BFA and live is kind of like, yeah. I don't really like that. I wish they made you actually sit down a bit and think about what you're doing. I think that's what it is. It's just thinking about, all right, what do I have to do next? All right, I gotta kill this mob, not just like woo, mindlessly just like farming stuff. So this, just the threat of being in danger, I think is a big one. Then I would say the feeling of progression. Obviously, it's going to be hard to make that feeling of progression when in one game, Classic WoW, you have to go 1 to 60, so you obviously feel like you're progressing as you get more gear and you get better at leveling and you keep going, while this is more like, a shortened version of that, and you're going to hit the end game and get better gear anyway. But I don't think it has to be just like a waste. I think you can still make it feel like you're getting gear to prepare yourself for the end game, and one way to do that, I think, would be to limit the stats on gear, right? I was trying to think of how you do this too, because obviously just limiting stats would have to go back to other expansions and gear and limit those stats. But one way I think they can do it would be, say we go into the Twisting Nether, like some crazy place, right? And it breaks our gear, right? Our current gear we've had for all of Azeroth is just completely useless, and we get these new sets of gear that have different stats on them, just different everything, and you have to start essentially like you're starting over at level 1 in vanilla WoW. So you would get grays, and you'd be happy getting those grays, and then you get greens and be like, oh man, I got a green with +1 whatever stat they introduce. I don't know. And you could kind of recreate that entire progression aspect of the game. I'm sure there's flaws in this, but I feel like there's gonna be flaws in everything you do. But that was just one thought I had, right? Like, what if we just went to this entirely new place where, you know, the gear was wiped and we had to kind of start over, essentially? Because when you think about it, that's what's happening anyway, right? Like, when you get to a new expansion, your old gear, your old grade gear, your old top tier stuff is just useless and you get new stuff. So, like, why not spice it up a little bit or add, you know, add some new flavor? Like, come on. You could do the same thing with money and stats. Like, I know they've tried doing this as well, but just doing, like, you know, a reset of kind of like the stat squish, I guess, but you can, you know, like a money squish. But it's another thing where, like, how do you go about doing this when they sell WoW tokens, right? So it's just so hard to do, and there's so many things in the game that are like WoW tokens, WoW leveling boosts. Like, I think that's the biggest issue with all of it, is all those things are in the game. So obviously it makes it more challenging. Resource management is another one. Just, you know, having to use your mana and your food and your, you know, all your buffs and your potions and everything to make the leveling process easier so you don't just die. I would like that more in modern WoW. But as I say all this, I feel like there's always going to be people complaining, being like, well, now it's too hard, or like, now it's unnecessarily inconvenient, like that type of thing. But I think that's what makes the game fun, right? Is the challenge of it, like the feeling of progression. That's the whole point of an RPG, is you're progressing. Like, you go from a level 1 character with barely any stats, you gain experience and levels, and you become stronger. And if you do that too quickly, it just destroys the entire, like, meaning of what you're doing. like sure, it might be more satisfying because you got to the ending faster, but there's no build up, right? It's like watching Lord of the Rings, and Frodo and Sam got the ring, and then, you know, 30 minutes into it, they're at Mount Doom because they bought the DLC to skip everything and just fly on an eagle. And now they're there and they put it in, and they're like, hey, we did it. Like, there's no, like, there's no journey, right? And I think that's what WoW leveling is currently missing, is the journey. You can just skip the journey and get to the end, and the journey helps create that ending. It's, you know, it helps make the ending more exciting and more fulfilling when you do actually get there and you are able to beat it. Somebody was making a good point, might have been Benji, with Diablo, right? Remember the Diablo auction house? I think that's another example of, you know, the modernized version of Blizzard games, where they decide to go at this auction house and it defeats the entire premise of the game. Like, you can go farm your gear, or you just buy it. So then you're going to buy the game, you're going to buy the gear that you have to get in the game to be geared, and then you don't have to play the game because you bought the gear. So you paid to get the game, you paid to beat the game, and now you beat the game, and there's, like, no satisfaction. Like, and I think that's what has to stop. And sure, you're gonna lose out on probably a lot of sales or boosts and everything, but like you have to make a good game. Like, that's the foundation, is the game. The gameplay and the progression is the foundation of the game. And if you don't have that, like, what do you have? And you know, I'm not a person who's like, oh, we got to get rid of all these other, like, pets and mount farming and, like, all the old content and you know, all these things that I think, you know, you can still keep a lot of the things in modern WoW, and you can still keep a lot of the things people enjoy doing, but you can do that while making it feel rewarding to actually get to the end game. I don't know. I don't know if anything I'm saying is making any sense, but I hope it is. It makes sense to me in the time, but I would like to know how you would want to go about changing the leveling experience in World of Warcraft. Even another thing would be just leveling from, like, 1 to 110 right now, I guess it would be. So, like, could you change that at some point? So I know they've done the scaling. I know they've made it so it scales, so whatever zone you go to scales. But I think they could probably do with shortening it a bit. maybe making it so you can choose what zones you want to go to, which expansions you want to play. Maybe you want to level like 1 to 30 and then go to, well, I guess, I don't know. Maybe like once you hit 60, you can choose to go to Pandaria, or you can go to Wrath of the Lich King stuff, or you can go to, you know, whatever. Or can you do that already? I don't know. I haven't leveled a character in like modern WoW in so long because there's no need. They just keep giving you free leveling boosts. You're like, oh, whatever. I don't know. So please leave your opinions, your comments, everything down below, and let me know what you would do to try and fix it, or if you enjoy the leveling experience currently. Although I don't know many people who would. I think people just buy leveling boosts, and that's just what they do, or use heirloom gear. I think the most people have leveled is with their new, what do they call them? The new races, right? The like High Mountain Tauren and all those things. Why can't I think of what it is? What is it? High Mountain Tauren. What are they called? Allied races. God, why couldn't I think of that? And I think going back and leveling all those things has made people kind of look at the WoW leveling experience a bit differently. Because you have to level. You can't just boost it, or you don't get the set, right? You don't get the set if you don't level it straight up. And the thing is, leveling could be so good too, right? Because they've obviously improved questing. They've obviously improved so many things with the leveling process. Like, the quest can be really cool, like the one where you're on the Kodo and you're like shooting the guys jumping on the Kodo. Like, that's a cool quest. But when you don't really have to do any of it, or you can skip a lot of it, and just ignore all those things, it's like, well, why even put it in the game then? So listen, I don't know. Let me know your comments down below, and tell me if I'm right, if I'm wrong, what you think. And yeah. Okay. See you.